Hello everyone, I'm Michael, and today, I'm going to tell you a story. People of Reddit, what's the most desperate thing you've ever done for money? Story 1. I participated in some market research for a new beer. Sounded great at the time. I get paid to drink beer. Anyway, it was a bunch of different beers in small plastic cups, all of which started out tasting like the strainings of the devil's underpants and progressively got worse. They kept bringing more out until one guy cracked, swiped all his beers off the table, and stormed out yelling, "I wouldn't even give this shit to my dog." I still don't know if it was market research or some bizarre psychological experiment. Story 2. I participated in a food study where I couldn't eat for a day before. Arrived at the lab crazy, early in the morning, had a tube put down my throat, and lay there for 6 hours as they pumped liquids into and out of my stomach. After the first 2 hours, I begged them to at least turn on the TV, but they would only let me watch PBS, so I couldn't accidentally see any commercials about food. It wasn't fun, but the pay was decent, and they served me a steak dinner afterward. Story 3. I used to pose naked for art classes while I was an undergrad. Pay was pretty good, about 5 times minimum wage. One grad student who was a good artist but kind of odd asked if I would do a private session of a few hours. I agreed as I was desperate for money. I figured that I had just been hired for sex. I was a bit conflicted, but then just figured why not. I showed up cleaned and prepped and dressed to look good, and it turned out that the artist really did want me to pose. During the whole thing they were polite but very specific on poses, and it was actually a bit challenging. They were so intense. While not particularly good-looking, the talent and effort was kind of a turn-on. By the end I was half hoping it would turn into sex and they would keep telling me how to pose, what to do, etc. We went over the time, but the artist was nice and grateful and paid extra. So I guess that I learned I would be willing to have sex for money in some situations. Story 4. Many years ago, when I was a child and my mother and I were facing homelessness, we'd spend the nights at various places, like laundromats or hospitals. One night, when we were really hungry, she had me dive into the wishing well to collect quarters to use for the vending machine. It's one of those surreal memories that stuck with me. Story 5. I worked at a little Hampton Inn. My sister and I had a small apartment, so roof over our heads, but very little food. We would take naps, so we didn't have to think about being hungry. I started lifting food from work. A few small danishes, some single-serve cups of peanut butter and jam, the commercial packs of coffee for her, and she would use just one for days. We'd buy bread and eggs mainly. I'm pretty sure the owner was onto me though. He left at 5, either went to dinner or home, then would end up back when I was on shift. BC. He accidentally ordered an extra dinner, or his wife made too much again of chicken and rice or spaghetti. I'd take it home and share. It was just a rough year. My mom visited and was shocked. Immediately took us to Costco to stock up. We were still eating off that food a year later. She bought us so much. Nothing fancy, but we felt like royalty with all that food. My definition of success is being able to go to the grocery store and buy whatever I want, without counting cost as I shop. Happy to say, I am a total success. Story 6. I was newly broke as a joke and had a date in hours. She wanted to go to Red Lobster. I went through my car, parents' cars, sisters' cars, couches, everything, looking for coins. I had a partial used gift card to somewhere as well. I took it all to the grocery store, cashed in the change, sold the gift card for practically nothing. I had just enough to cover myself. If she expected me to get the bill, I was finished. I'd have to own up to having like $31.25 to my name. Luckily, she didn't. She piped up and split the bill. So now we're married. Story 7. I pawned some handmade jewelry that was passed to me from someone very special. When I got paid less than 2 weeks later, my items were missing from the pawn shop. I have never gotten over that, and it makes me sad I never even got to wear her jewelry to something special. Story 8. In university, I signed up as a lab rat for various studies. One involved staying awake for 30+ hours in a room with no sunlight, communication, or anything else that might give me a sense of time. Among blood and urine tests as well as various probes and monitoring devices, it also involved keeping a thermometer in my ass the entire time. $1,400 is $1,400 though. Story 9. I scrounged every inch of my car, trunk, under carpet, pulled out seats, to find enough change not to bounce a check. I needed less than $1 and had about an hour to find the money and deposit it. The banker lady knew what was up when I made the deposit. 30-some years later, and I still haven't bounced a check. Story 10. I met a complete stranger from the internet to sell him some used underwear. If it were a send it in the mail thing, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But part of it was that he wanted me to meet him to give them to him. And then he would pay me in cash. It was a pretty good amount, so I went for it. We talked for a while beforehand, and he was really nice. I didn't get the vibe that I was gonna get killed, and I needed the money. It was a quick meet in a Walmart parking lot. Nothing really bad happened. Story 11. I made $50 when I was randomly approached in a bar to be on a foot fetish site. There was no nudity or actual sexiness involved. Just a lot of pictures of women's feet on my face, chest, etc. It was way more uncomfortable than it should have been. Story 12. You have reached rock bottom when you start working in life insurance. On my last leg, I got my insurance license and then learned the job was purely commission and you make more money if you are a manager, only to find out that as a manager, you have operational costs. So you actually end up spending more money just to get through the month. Then you find out it's a pyramid scheme. This is not an insurance company, it is a hiring company that had a revolving door that never stopped spinning. Story 13. A few years after high school, one of my crushes messaged me on Facebook. I was in between jobs and still living at home. She said she was coming back into town and wanted to hang out. I didn't have any money for a date. I took some rifles that were handed down to me by family to pawn shop to sell. They offered me a ridiculously low amount. I felt embarrassed and put on the spot. I wanted the date to happen. Sold the rifles. Next day, we got to talking, and she apologized and told me we would not be hanging out and that she was going on a date with one of her crushes from high school. Story 14. I was poor growing up. Really poor. One time, around age 8 or 9, I collected a bunch of buttons, wherever I could find them around the house, and then hit the street, door to door, trying to sell them for $1 a piece. It took me 3 hours to make $5. I was so excited that I finally had enough money to buy a sugary cereal, Lucky Charms. I went to 7-Eleven, bought a box and got home to eat it. But we didn't have milk, so I started to cry. I ended up using water instead. It was very, very pitiful. Fast forward 40 years, and now I can buy milk and cereal anytime I want. It's great. I never take it for granted. Story 15. I was 20, broke, about to be homeless. Guy I used to work for thought I was hot, said he'd pay me $100 if I let him suck me off and jerked him off while he did it. That hundo helped me get my life back on track. Sure, I had to jerk another guy off to get it, but a dick's a dick. Story 16. I acted in some OnlyFans videos. It was with a girl I had a FWB thing with. I was not comfortable doing it, but I was drowning in debt and my had run out, so I agreed. She paid me. We made a video once a week for about 4 to 5 months. Helped me get out of debt and pay the bills until I found a job. The biggest thing I sacrificed was my self-esteem. A few weeks in, she admitted that she asked me because I'm kinda ugly and a little fat, but that just makes me relatable to her fans. It really made me feel disgusting and absolutely destroyed any sort of self-worth I had. Story 17. I was living with $1 or $2 a day that month. Asked on Reddit. A generous woman gifted $40 to me. I offered an artwork in exchange whenever I would have the time to make it. Sent it. She never claimed it. Her account is still active and sometimes I wonder how she's doing. I, for one, am doing much better. Story 18. I wanted to pay for my kid's high school graduation ring. He worked so hard and was going to graduate against all odds. To pay for the ring and get it made and delivered in time for me to give it to him on graduation day, I sold my complete Sub Pop Singles Club collection. That included Nirvana's first 45 Love, Buzz, and extremely rare pressings from The White Stripes, Smashing Pumpkins, Iron and Wine, Death Cab for Cutie, and Sunny Day Real Estate. The ring arrived the day before graduation day. Story 19. It was 2 a.m. on a Saturday, and my buddy called me up. He and his girl wanted me to come over and have sex with her. They're big into cuckold stuff. I say no. I have no money, and it's across town. Also, I was dead tired and didn't want to do it, but I made the excuse that it was all about money. He says he'll pay for my cab to and from and give me $50 extra. I went. I fucking went. I fucked her and got paid for it. Story 20. I joined a medical study that was researching the effects of severe weight gain and weight loss on bone marrow. Involved 10 days of eating 6,000 calories a day and then 10 days of not eating anything. You had to stay in a hospital room the entire time. Every day, they took a bone marrow sample, which was decidedly not fun. $7,000 at the end of the 20 days.